bee, the parasitic mite called Varroa would be about the size of a plate, and sometimes you can get 2 or 3 of these literally sucking the lifeblood out of a bee.
They can't do anything about that then. They've got quite big, like, not pincers, or do they not, on the front of them? Do they not have some sort of ability to pull off?
The bees themselves, some strains, and some beekeepers are trying to breed this into them. Some strains can attempt to clean these, but these mites are pretty strong. There are various mechanical ways that you can try and scrape these out. So, for example, one thing at the moment, so bees are quite clever in sort of scraping them off themselves.
Yeah.
And the modern beehive, I guess in the last 30 years, doesn't have a base, so it's hollow at the bottom. In the old days, it just looked to be a sealed box. But now at the bottom, it's got a net, a sort of a wire mesh at the bottom to allow any of these mites that are scraped off fall through to the bottom. What you can do is you can put out a plate underneath, a tray underneath, and just count them and see how many is, and just monitor how much there is there. But there are various toxic and non-toxic methods of killing these, and that's, we just have to manage that. But the bees go through, they have dysentery problems, they have various other problems. And if you think about diesel particles, bees breathe through very tiny spiracles in their body, very tiny fine tubes, and they can get, there's a theory that they can get filled up with or blocked with diesel particles. And then they have the onslaught of farmers using various pesticides, and just gardens. I mean, gardeners will spray flowers, open flowers. I mean, I'd like to encourage people not to spray on open flowers, and you need one poison to go back to the hive.
Yeah.
And councils are getting a little bit more sensible now. Councils can be a big problem because they spend a lot of money on things like Roundup, which can be quite toxic to the environment. It gets rid of the weeds, yeah, great, but it's been shown to be toxic to daphne, water fleas, and various other crustacea. And there's a thought that it can be, or some research that it can affect humans as well in the food chain. So we don't really want to be throwing pesticides around. There are alternatives. So, for example, on my big drive I've got a lot of weeds grow up from time to time. I use a mixture of vinegar and salt, and a little touch of detergent, and that seems to work quite well. And if you dab it onto weeds, that works quite well as well. I think we all need to be a little bit more tolerant of weeds as well as time goes on. Instead of having beautiful lawns, I think we should be a little bit more relaxed about
if
that.
it makes you feel better for my farm, then my allotment has a lot of weeds, and that's not because because I do it deliberately. It's just because I don't have the time, or haven't had the time to go and do it, to weed it. So that's a problem for me by fault.
That's a positive, isn't it? That's a positive. But I think things like waiting for hedges and shrubs to flower before you cut them, just little things like that, really. Or waiting for the weeds to flower before you cut them back down, just a little bit. And to provide, what we're trying to provide over the country is a bee corridor or pollinator corridors, so they can actually move from one place to another. Down in Purbeck, that's happening quite well. There's a lot of coordination between the various groups and National Trust and the landowners, and they're working together to provide that corridor for various things, not just pollinators. But those things are quite important, really.